everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a Weight Watchers or weight related weight loss Q&A. I asked on Instagram, YouTube, and actually I asked on Facebook as well for your guys' questions. Some of them, majority of them are weight loss related, but there are a couple of personal questions in there as well because I did say you could pretty much ask anything you wanted to, and I got a lot of questions, so I'm going to definitely do a part 1 and a part 2. So if you do have a question, it's not too late, you can comment it down below. If you do want to be anonymous, just drop me a DM on Instagram and let me know and I will answer your question for you. So I'm just going to get started. The first question comes from Ashley_Slater, and she asks, do you cook separate meals for yourself, or do you do all of the family Weight Watchers meals too? So it kind of varies, to be quite honest with you. It depends what we're eating at the time. If I'm making something like a curry or like something quite spicy or kebabs that I know the kids won't necessarily enjoy to eat, I will opt to make them a dish alongside, which is probably why you'll notice in my What I Eat in a Day is that there's quite a few different pans on the hob. That could be sometimes because the kids won't enjoy what we're eating or it's not really appropriate for them. And other times as well, what I like to do, even when I am cooking them a Weight Watchers recipe, I will do them a higher fat version. So if my version comes with like 0% fat-free Greek yogurt, I will use full fat in theirs because my kids are really teeny and they do not need to be eating loving fat food. It kind of varies, it depends what we're making. If I'm making homemade pizzas, burgers, of course they will dine with us. If I'm making something I don't think they will eat, I will bake or cook them their home cooked meals separately. So that is the answer to that, Ashley. Thank you so much for your question. The next question comes from Jazz.Bradley, and she asks, did you ever feel really let down with a weight loss? To be honest with you, not really. There was only one point in my entire journey where I had a gain, and that was my birthday weekend, which I totally expected because I went out, had brunch, then had afternoon tea, and then went out for a meal, and then had a party the next day and consumed loads of food, cakes and treats and all that kind of jazz. So not really. I mean, I kind of expected that weigh-in that week to be a little bit higher than it normally would have been, but every single week since then, you have to consider the fact that that was back in July of last year. Every single week since then, including Christmas, Easter, and all the times you would necessarily eat more foods and more chocolate and comfort eat that little bit more, I've still seen a loss. So I've never stood on the scales and been disappointed. I kind of acknowledge now, because my weight is so much smaller, that my losses are going to be slower, but I can't say I've ever been disappointed because anything that has happened I've been totally in control of, and I've known. I've never stood on the scales and been like totally surprised by a result. So yeah, that is answers to that question. Thank you so much, Jazz. And the next question comes from Lucy.Stone27, and she asks, do you have any hobbies? I've watched you for years now and you look amazing. Thank you so much, Lucy. That's so nice of you. I do have hobbies aside from YouTube. Obviously I love to cook and bake. Baking is probably more of a joy of mine than cooking is, even though I think I'm just as good at cooking as I am baking, and I would say I'm quite accomplished at baking. I recently baked my stepmom's birthday cake. I'll put a little picture here in case you guys haven't seen that on my Instagram. And I bake a lot. Like if I've been invited to a party by friends or family, they will always put a little hint on there, can I do some kind of baked good to bring with me? But I also enjoy to cook. I love to play tennis. Tennis is a massive passion of mine. I think since I was like 15, 16 years old, and got to quite a good standard. And just have stopped and not played recently, but I definitely want to take it back up again. And taking photographs as well. I love taking photographs and using different lenses and different effects. I really enjoy it. So that is definitely a passion of mine. The next question comes from WW_Jessica Ellen. Do you have days / periods of time when you have no motivation and are craving bad foods? Absolutely. Especially around that time of the month, like that time of the month, that week before where your weight tends to go a bit crazy and you sort of increase your weight, that is when I tend to have my cravings. And my cravings don't generally tend to be carb foods. I just get a real sweet tooth, so I crave chocolate. The only way I combat them is to feed into my cravings. I don't deny myself, and I always say this because if you deny yourself 100% of the time, it's not realistic, it's not sustainable, and therefore there's nothing in it for you, there's no incentive. So I like to feed into my cravings from time to time, realistically of course. I don't proper binge. I have done a video on binge eating, by the way, which if you haven't seen it, I will link it above because it's quite useful for you guys to watch, especially if that is an area that concerns you when it comes to your relationship with food and that kind of thing. But all I'll say is, look, if you fancy something, your body is wanting it for a reason, just have it. Just don't have it every day and don't have it in excess. Eat your cravings, don't feel too bad about it, enjoy it, and be better next time. The next question comes from Deepika Mender, who is a long-time viewer, a very, very lovely lady, and her son that watch my videos, and I just love it when they reach out. They are so sweet. And she asks, what if I don't have Weight Watchers in my country? What should I do in regards to my weight loss journey? That's very tricky. I can only really speak for my journey, and obviously I have followed the Weight Watchers Wellness That Works plan. All I will say is if you do want to go any kind of calorie control, perhaps watch my What I Eat in a Day, get inspiration from that. I always show the point value, I always show the quantities, the weigh-in of the things that I use, and I am hoping to step my game up and do at least 1 to 2 a week. I think currently I'm doing at least 1 a week, but I'm hoping to upload more for you guys as the channel is growing. So if you would like to see more What I Eat in a Days from me, give this video a thumbs up and comment down below, and I'll make sure to get them filmed on a regular basis for you, or even more regularly than I'm doing. But the only thing I will say is, check calories online. Everyone has access to Google. Just check things, check your food, and just try and be mindful. Try and make choices that you know are going to be better for you. For example, if you're going out and you're having a curry, perhaps opt for the chicken curry as opposed to the lamb, because lamb is a much fattier meat. And just do it where you can. I mean, obviously, if you don't have access to it, it can be quite difficult. I'm really sorry if that doesn't help. The next question comes from Ashley Jade B, and she asks, what are the top 3 things you feel you have gained from losing weight? So gosh, that is such a good question, Ashley. I have gained so much. I think the main thing, the number one main thing, has been a confidence and a new, not lease on life, that sounds really dramatic, but just a new confidence I've created within myself. I don't know if it comes from just feeling better, and when I put my clothes on I feel more confident, I feel like I look a bit better than I did before. And I think the confidence has been the main thing, like how much happier I felt, how much more sort of freer and accepting of myself and kinder that I've been to myself. And I think with recording these videos for you guys, it makes me practice what I preach. It makes me really mindful to be kind. You guys will always know that when you message me telling me you've had a bad day or a bad week, or you put a comment on a video saying that you've had a bit of a relapse or something like that, you'll always know that all you'll find in me is support, love and understanding. So I try to give that to myself as well. So I've just been much kinder to myself. So not only is the confidence an amazing thing, but also I've been much more kinder to myself, more mindful. And then the next thing I would say, you guys, just this whole massive community that we've created. I know 20-odd thousand is not loads on the grand scheme of YouTube, but it's a hell of a lot of people, and it's a lot of messages that I get every day, and just interacting with you guys, having that journey, having that process has just been so wonderful and really, really fulfilling on my part as a creator, but also as a woman and as a friend, and I love it. So definitely the friendships that I've made, the confidence, and the fact that it's taught me to be kinder and more realistic in my expectations of myself are definitely my favourite things, and the things that I've noticed in the top 3 for sure. The next question comes from Molly Ann 87, and honestly guys, I must get this question every single day on various platforms, so I'm so glad you've asked it, Molly, and it is, do you exercise as well? I don't. I know a lot of you guys will be thinking like, wow, I thought you did, and I get it a lot. Like a lot of people say like, what are you doing to work out? Like you've had this weight loss since June, which is 3 stone 3 pounds, I believe, since June. So I've gone from like a size 16 to a size 8. And a lot of people just assume that I do a lot of working out, and it is not the case. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I do not really like to work out. I don't enjoy it. The only thing I will say that I do is I run around after 2 small children, and believe me, my kids keep me busy. But also I do the school run walking. So even if I have the car, which is rare at the school run times, I will have the car on a Friday, and I still, unless it's really cold or really rainy, I don't tend to drive. I tend to try and walk. So I walk at least 15 minutes 4 times a day, 5 days a week, which you could say is probably a little bit of a workout, I don't know, but yeah, I do a bit of walking, but that is about it. So the next 2 questions come from the same person, and it's the Clarabelle Does Slimmy. And the first question she's asked is, how do you get straight back on plan after a binge? Don't binge. I'm very good at self-control. I'm very good at like portion control and all that kind of thing. So it's very, very rare that I will have a binge. The only thing I will say is when I overindulge slightly, which I'm always within my point allowance, so it's not even really overindulging, but if I have a sweet tooth, for example, at the time of PMS that I previously mentioned, I will just accept it, have what I want, and then have a better rest of my day or better rest of my week. The only thing I will say is don't be too hard on yourself. Don't get yourself into a cycle of self-loathing, of guilt, and of all these negative, awful thoughts that make you inclined to eat more and want to comfort yourself because you're just dragging your self-worth down, and then therefore you're eating more. All I'll say is accept it, acknowledge it, swipe it aside and move on. And she also asked, Not so much a question, but do you have any tips for the all or nothing mentality? A lot of it will come with training your mind, and a lot of what goes on in your mind is a choice. Even though if you don't feel that way, even though if your mind makes you feel like it's not a choice, it is. And I have chosen to not have very black and white thinking, and I would class all or nothing as very black and white thinking. I like to have a grey area when it comes to food. All about, it's never all or nothing, it's sometimes. Not writing things off, you're not saying I can't have that, I must have this. It's much more freeing and realistic. So all I will say is try so hard not to have that mentality. Try and stop yourself when you know you're doing it to yourself and you think I cannot have this. Just try and be mindful and think, actually I just don't have to eat all of it. I can maybe perhaps have a portion of it. And it's definitely a process. It's something you need to learn. It's something you need to be mindful of. Some days you'll be better at it than others. I just think you need to accept that you're human at the end of the day and you're going to have good days and bad. I have another question here, and this person wanted to remain anonymous. I get so anxious over the accuracy of calories. When I count them, my limit is 1,200 a day. By the way, this is a female viewer. But I feel like with inaccuracies, it could be 1,300 or more. Do you have any advice for this? I have a food weighing scale, but I'm still skeptical. So that's the first question. It actually comes in a few different parts. So what I will say to that is, I don't personally calorie count. I do the Weight Watchers plan, which basically is smart points. I don't actually look into the calorie value unless I'm curious about something, or unless I see that something has quite a high point value. I will go and search for the calories and see what I think about it. But all I'll say is maybe invest in new scales. If you're skeptical and you're not trusting what you're seeing on the scales, buy yourself a new set. I will link the ones I use in the description box down below. I've had them for years, super cheap, super reliable, and they've never steered me wrong. The other thing I will say is don't try and focus so much on your calorie intake and worry about it, because sometimes when you're stressed or you're worried, your body can do crazy things when it comes to stress. All I will say is try and be a bit freer with it, and if you are struggling, opt for different scales, see if it makes a difference, and also just educate yourself more in regards to calorie values, what you can be eating. Maybe not focus on the numbers so much and try and focus on the food that you're eating. Make sure it's fulfilling, make sure it drives you, and hopefully things will get better, but definitely try getting a different scale, see if it makes a difference. The next part of the question is, do you have any advice on how to become a little less obsessed with food, calories, exercise, etc.? It feels like it's all I think about sometimes. I try to remind myself of, and I've said this to you guys on numerous occasions, and it's something that I have to constantly remind myself of as well. It's not the be all and end all. Try and get perspective, try and get some realism. It's not the most interesting thing about you, is it? Have you ever walked up to someone and thought the most interesting thing about this person is their weight, how much they weigh, what they're eating, what their calorie intake is like? No, it is literally the least interesting thing about someone, I find. So just try and have some perspective. If you find yourself overthinking it and focusing on it too much, just literally again choose to think, no, I'm done with this today. I'm not gonna obsess. And it's hard because I do it myself sometimes. But again, this viewer wanted to remain anonymous, and it says, "Hi Natasha, I absolutely love watching your What I Eat in a Day videos and your Aldi hauls. Thank you so much. It always motivates me. A question for you is, I keep trying and then failing. My main problem is snacks. I think I consume most of my calories and points from snacks, and I have really bad habits to the point where I have to keep restarting, and then I'm not kind to myself and feel bad about myself for failing all of the time. How did you cope with the beginning of your weight loss journey with Cravings? Did it take many attempts of trying and failing until it clicked? Or did you just commit 100% from the outset?" So, amazing question, thank you so much for that. Realistically, I have been on Weight Watchers 3 times. One years and years ago, where I lost the majority of my weight when I was at my heaviest. I think my heaviest was like 14 stone odd. I'll put a picture here. For me, that was me at my heaviest, and I went on Weight Watchers and lost the majority of the weight. Then I put it back on to an extent, not all of it. Like, I think the highest I got to after that was like 13 stone. Then they changed the whole system and I stopped doing it. I don't know why. It wasn't the right time for me, clearly. I just kept yo-yoing. I lost about a stone and got down to 12 stone too. I found that my habits were again slipping and I didn't feel great about myself. So I've actually done Weight Watchers a few different times, and this was the only time where I've stuck at it and I felt just as motivated at the beginning as I had at now goal. And all I will say is, you have to do it at the right time. Like, sometimes it's just not the right time. Sometimes you have things going on, sometimes you're not ready, sometimes family circumstances, and sometimes you have a lot going on at work, and your mind just cannot focus on too many things at once. Like, there's just no room. All I will say is, if you failed at something, and it's never a failure because you'll always have learned something, you will always have experience from something, like it's never a failure. Just because you've had experiences in the past that haven't been that positive does not mean your next attempt is going to be just as dramatic or as horrible or as less successful. I guess you can liken that to a driving test. I took my driving test 3 times, failed catastrophically the first time. Second time, don't think I should have failed, but he was pedantic. He basically failed me for preparing to stop at an amber light. Weirdo. And then the third time, passed it with flying colours. Obviously, all of those 3 times are very, very different. The results were all very different and the way I felt was very different, but I never saw any of the processes as a failure. I saw it as experience. And I know, again, it's all about choice and how you choose to view things, but I was never as motivated the first few times. Like, I did it because I wanted to do it, got to a fairly standard of where I wanted to get, and then just wrote it off. And I feel like now, something just clicked, as you've said, and it felt like the right time for me. And it definitely is reflected in the results, it's reflected in the mindset, it's reflected in where I am then to where I am now. Like, the mindset hasn't changed. If anything, it's stronger, it's happier, yeah, it's hard to explain, but definitely there have been times where I've not been completely on it. And all I will say is, you know, when it comes to bad habits and it comes to snacks and binging, I've done a full video on emotional eating and binging when it comes to relationships with food, and I think a lot of that video could answer your questions in regards to snacks. The next question comes from D, and I have answered this, D. Did you ever exercise? If so, what did you do? So I've answered that already. The next question comes from Gibbery. Are you currently losing? I remember you saying you were on maintenance. Do you still plan to lose more? I don't plan to lose anymore. I feel like the weight that I'm at is very, very sustainable for me, a very happy weight. My clothes fit comfortably. I feel like I look a lot better. I feel a lot better. So no plans to lose any more weight. The next question comes from Louise Huntingford, and she asks, how did you manage when you are off plan? Do you feel feelings of guilt which can ultimately lead to binges? I kind of feel like I've answered that one already also, but I really try to steer away from any feelings of guilt or any feelings of labelling food as good or as bad. I hope that binge video that I've linked above helps you to answer your question more specifically, but generally no, I don't tend to let myself have those feelings where I can. Obviously sometimes they creep in, but I just try to remind myself that I'm human. If I want a burger, I'm going to have it, and I'm going to start as I mean to go on. The next question comes from Chelsea Chavez. Would you like to be more known for your fashion likes or Weight Watchers journey? I would like to be equally as known for both, if I'm honest, because fashion has been a huge passion of mine this year. Like, it was never a real thing for me because of the confidence and because of everything else, but now I'm really enjoying to dress myself. It's definitely changed. So I would love my channel to be reflective of me and my interests at that time, which is definitely fashion and food and my Weight Watchers journey. So both, but I definitely think in realistic terms it's probably more it's more my foodie content that people come here for sure. So the next question comes from Nadia Brown, and she asks, have you stuck to the plan 100% since you started, and did you find you had a good weight loss every single week? So yes, I've stuck to the plan every single day since June of 2018. I've tracked my food every single day. Yes, sometimes I have better losses than others. Sometimes I've gone over my dailies and used a majority of my weeklies, so my weight loss hasn't been as significant. Again, my birthday weekend I actually had a gain. So all I will say is I've definitely been tracking every single day regardless of the good or the bad since June. So 100% committed to it and seeing great results most of the time. I would say 99% of the time. The next question comes from Rebecca Wood, and she asks, what was it that made you decide to lose weight? So I actually have done a video talking about all of the reasons why I rejoined Weight Watchers. I will link it above in case you haven't seen it, and oh my gosh, I look so different in that video, it's crazy. This question comes from Rebecca Wilson. She says, love your channel, especially your what I eat in a day. Thank you so much. Just wondered how you deal with sugar cravings. So I don't really get sugar cravings generally. I have a sweet tooth like everybody else, and again, all I do is I'll have a bit of chocolate. I eat what I want in moderation, so I would definitely urge you guys to do the same. The next question comes from Michelle Parmenter, and she's asked, or she said, I'm pretty new to Weight Watchers and so far it's going really well. When I've tried other diets, I seem to hit a plateau. Do you think this will happen on the Weight Watchers plan? Some days I just want comfort food and have quite a stodgy lunch like bread and a carb heavy dinner like pasta, but I always stay within my points. Is this okay? P.S. Thank you for being the inspiration I need to start my weight loss journey. If you're staying within your point value, it's absolutely fine to have whatever you want. You know, don't restrict yourself. Don't label foods as good or as bad. If you've pointed them and they're within your daily and weekly allowance, eat what you want. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't be too hard on yourself. The next question comes from That's Mrs. Smith to You. Very sassy, I like that. And she's put, how many calories do you eat in a day during your weight loss and your maintenance? So again, I've never calorie counted, so I can't specifically say. All I will say is when I started my weight loss journey, I was on 23 points per day, and I think I got 28 weeklies, and now I'm on 28 a day. So it's gone up by 5 to maintain, and that's what I eat. And it works really well for me, and it's helped me to maintain my weight. Really happy about it. And then finally, the last question, you guys must be like bored by now, but this comes from Brid Murphy, who is such a sweetheart, and she asks, do you generally stay away from bread and pasta? I do, I'm not gonna lie, like there's no point. Bread, perhaps not so much. I do eat flatbreads and I do eat garlic bread. I don't really eat loaves and sandwiches very often, if at all, if I'm completely honest. I never eat toast anymore, and I don't eat pasta. I've not eaten pasta since last June. I had it a tiny portion of it in a what I eat in a day video where I did a spag bowl. I'll link it above. And I even mentioned in that video, like, I don't really see the need for it. It just made me feel bloated. I much prefer a chunky sauce with lots of bread as opposed to the pasta and the bread. So no, I do avoid it. And even when I have a burger, if I'm honest, the bread is the first thing to go if I'm feeling like I'm not super hungry. And even when I am super hungry, I don't tend to eat all of the bread on a burger because I just find it so unnecessary, like there's so much of it. So yeah, I do stay away from bread for the most part, and pasta generally. Like, I do not eat pasta, so yeah. Guys, that is all the questions. Thank you so much for sticking with me for this long. I didn't realise that I'd got so many, and again, I have a few more to go through, so there's definitely going to be a part 2. If you want to ask any questions that you would like to ask, regardless of them being weight related, if you just have some general curiosity about my life or about myself, comment down below and I will make sure to get them answered for you. If you do want to ask anonymously, you can also head over to my Instagram, and there is like a little DM section where you can message me privately. Don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, and also don't forget to click on the little bell and you'll get a notification every single time a video goes live of mine. That would be great. Thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.